2 centuries ago, we took our first steps onto this journey. A journey of resilience, determination, and innovation on risk management. Today, as we stand at the intersection of history and responsibility, we pledge our commitment to sustainability for the well-being of those who are born today, by those who are young, by those who are adults, and by those who have not born yet. What we've learned along this path is that life must not be stopped. This is the only way to go, reducing our ecological footprint, impacting society, and leading by example. We have set ourselves the ambition to reach net zero by 2050, while for our operations by 2040. We work every day on longevity, health prevention, and inclusion. We act by the we care spirit, ensuring that we are always present when people need us most. We are proactive players in social protection and empowerment. We are change makers so we can continue together. Join us preparing the future so that life doesn't stop.
To our events, Fidelidade's event at the Portuguese Pavilion. It is an honor, true honor, to be here present with you for the first time, and for the first time that Portugal has a pavilion at COP. The idea today and our event is called Me to We, Collaborative Transition. And it's called like this because we truly believe that these two things are crucial. Climate transition, as we all know, it's crucial for the whole world, but also a collaborative approach to it. And especially being an insurance company that truly relies on its clients, its suppliers, the companies where we invest in, and it's not possible for us to reach net zero or to us to make sure that we contribute to the targets that the SDGs imply without a collaborative approach. And all the events will try to show that. The first part will be a conversation between our CEO, Rogério Campos Henriques, and a senior partner of BCG, top consulting company, as you know. Lorenzo Fantini is present here with us, and he co-leads the climate risk and compliance team. And in this panel, the idea is to show you how climate change is so deeply correlated with the insurance industry. Actually, there is a former CEO of a big insurance company that said that a world 4 degrees warmer, it's a world that is impossible to insure. So, on one hand, the impact that the climate has in the insurance industry, it's pivotal, I would say. On the other hand, the responsibility that the insurers have in this climate transition, it's huge. Because being in the financial company, we are able to influence all the stakeholders we are engaged with. In the second part, called Social Impact Collaboration for Earth, we bring in the collaborative approach that we are discussing. And that's why we have 3 different panelists. First one, we have Raquel Felicart from the UN Global Compact Portugal, that will support us in understanding how the companies are looking to this issue and how they think that the insurance companies can support them. Then we have Joana Balsemão from the Cascais municipality, a leading municipality in Portugal that is tackling climate transition and will enable us to understand how the public sector can also play a role in this transition. And then Rui Esteves, the head of pricing and technical studies from Fidelidade Group, that will also explain concretely what we are doing today and in the future to support this transition. In the end, we'll have the closing remarks from Rogério, our CEO, and we'll make an announcement publicly for the first time. Just two quick notes about Fidelidade. Firstly, Fidelidade is the largest insurance company in Portugal, but it's also present in a number of other countries. We are in more than 10 countries across 4 continents. Especially in Latin America, we have a huge presence in Chile, Peru, Bolivia, and Paraguay. We're also present in Angola, Mozambique, and Cape Verde, as you know, 3 Portuguese-speaking countries. We're also present in Spain, France, Liechtenstein, with operations in Germany and Switzerland, and in Macau in Asia. Some key numbers for you to have a view of Fidelidade. So we have more than 5 billion euros of gross written premiums. So basically the revenues of an insurance company. We have 30% of market share in Portugal. More than 8 million customers in the world, around 2 million in Portugal. So we already have more clients. 3/4 of our clients come from abroad already. More than 8,000 employees. And again, only 3,500 coming from Portugal. So again, we already have more Spanish-speaking employees than Portuguese. 200 million of net income last year, and 17 billion euros of assets under management. This is one of the reasons why the investment part is so important for an insurance company. In this QR code, you are able to get all the information we are discussing here today and the initiatives and targets that Fidelidade is setting and announcing in this event. And I'll ask Lorenzo Fantini to join me on stage and to present how BCG is looking to this and how BCG thinks that the insurance industry should take a role in this climate transition.
Thank you, João. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of BCG and really to discuss why it's so relevant that insurers take climate action. I think it's very normal that we think for oil and gas companies is relevant not to take climate action. We have seen the methane agreement, we think about hard to abate and so on, but why insurers? Actually, insurers do have a unique role, because what insurers can do via investing and via underwriting policies, there is no substitute for that. So the incentives that insurers can provide to companies in the real economy to effectively decarbonize and to effectively be on a path that is sustainable, again, there is no competitor. You might argue there are other investors, potentially. There is no one else that does underwriting and covers the risks. So it becomes very important, for example, when launching a renewable pipeline, when building a new renewable infrastructure, when thinking about adaptation, to have an insurance offering that is focused on that. So the role of insurers is key. And now moving a bit into insurers versus Fidelidade. So many insurers have pledged long-term commitments. This was a bit back in Glasgow. Some of us here in the room remember that very well. Few insurers have taken that long-term view and long-term commitment into tangible, short-term, concrete actions and concrete targets. That's essentially what Fidelidade did over the last couple of years. So it will be a pleasure for me to discuss about this journey with Rogério, the CEO of Fidelidade, which I welcome on the stage. So let's start with maybe the most simple but most important question, that is, you just announced a net zero plan that really puts you at the forefront of the industry, so really at the level of the Allianz or the Aviva and the AXA, if not more challenging. So what was the driving force, and what can you tell us about this net zero plan, and also how it links into your broader sustainability agenda at Fidelidade?
Well, hi Lorenzo, it's It's a pleasure actually to be here and be able to explain a bit how it fits into our overall strategy. I could say actually that in reality, when we talk about sustainability, we do believe that sustainability has always been at the heart of what we do in insurance. You know, sometimes we even say that insurance is inherently sustainable, because not so much probably from an environmental perspective, but from a social perspective, what we do is we protect our customers, and we sometimes say that our business is actually to prepare our customers to prepare the future, to help our customers prepare the future. So in that sense, sustainability has always been at the core of what we do. It is true that much more from a social perspective, and all that we do in health, in life, in retirement. So all these characteristics that these businesses or these business lines that we have, it has always been very present in that sense. But this evolution from social to environment is actually, it's very natural. Because when we think about the impacts that all these climate issues might have on people's lives, it's almost natural when we look at the way we look at our customers and how we want to protect them. It's natural to start thinking much more broadly about the environment too, and to think of what we could do as an insurer to proactively help our customers in this, throughout this journey of having a responsible behavior, let's call it a climate responsible behavior, and to do this, the climate transition. So for us it was an absolutely natural thing to do, and over the last couple of years our perspective has grown into a more and more proactive one. So we want to make a difference. We believe that insurance can make a difference, basically through our investments, as you already said, and through our underwriting, through our customers, and we can make something there. Concerning the targets, and I think you were talking about also about this policy, yes, it is true. We developed our net zero policy, let's just say our net zero targets, and basically these involve not only direct emissions, because this is something that most people do not know. In insurance, actually, direct emissions are the emissions that come from our operations are actually quite small. They represent around 5% of our overall emissions. And so, of course, we will act on those, but we have to act much more broadly into what we call the underwriting. So it means our customers, our insurance customers, and in our investments, because, as you said, we are a very important investor, let's just say. So overall, concerning operations, and as I said, this is a very small part, but as we say, I think we have a role to walk the talk. And so we have the role to explain to people and to express and to demonstrate what we can do. And there it's easy. Basically, we decided that it will be net zero by 2040. And that is, of course, one way to express our commitment into this area. But then on the underwriting part, basically, what we decided to do is that we will be net zero by 2050, as most of the other insurance. And the same thing happens in all that has to do with investments. So we have already assigned or defined a certain set of components in our investments in which we intend to be net zero by 2050. But we did something else, which is, as you said, we decided to define intermediate targets. So we will also we have specific targets for 2025 concerning our operations, our direct emissions, and in which we intend to reduce by 50%. And we also have intermediate targets in underwriting and in investments, in which we intend to reduce around 30% in underwriting and 40% in investments. So let's just say we're walking the talk, and we're taking concrete measures to make it happen. That's basically what's happening.
No, and really the intermediate targets are the moment of truth, because it's always good to take targets. I say it like that, Rogelio. It's always good to target when it's not there anymore. It's easy, no, to pledge 50, 60, and to take very bold targets, but to pledge 25 with very concrete actions, then you and your board are accountable for that. So I think that makes a complete difference between, a credible and robust decarbonization strategy and one that is more, let's say, inspirational only. So absolutely kudos to you and your team for that. You mentioned that a lot of times that you try to also follow a bit what are the market standards and the best practices out there. But having worked a little bit with you, I do believe that in a way Fidelidade is a bit special. That there is something different. Yes, you are trying, of course, to follow science. You are taking an external perspective. But what makes your net zero and decarbonization strategy special? What makes it different, actually, from the others?
Well, maybe what we can say is that, well, Fidelidade is, as we know, the big insurer, the large insurer in Portugal. Portugal is actually, worldwide, is a small country. And actually, one of the specifics has to do with the specifics of Portugal. In Portugal, our business environment is composed of a very big number of small enterprises. And so we have what we call SMEs in Portugal are the big part of the business landscape. And this, of course, will create big challenges. Because we're not talking about top corporates that are already very aware, very knowledgeable, they have the data, they already have specific plans concerning climate transition. We're talking about some companies that actually they are not very aware. And so this poses a significant challenge for us. And it's very different from other geographies and from other countries. There also, maybe let me also add something else, which is in the case of Fidelidade, we are spread over 14 countries also. Some of these countries, they are also very different. They don't have the same set of regulations, the same set of obligations that the European countries have. And so we're talking specifically about Latin America and Africa. And of course, this again creates an additional challenge. Because what we have to do is we have to create not only the right awareness, but we have to create the learning capabilities. We have to tutor them into making the right thing. That creates again a different challenge. And so it's not only a matter of trying to explain people what's happening with climate transition. It's a matter of bringing the tools, bringing the learnings, bringing the guidelines for people to actually do something in the field in the day-to-day. And so that creates a different challenge. As you said, and I think we're all aware of this, methodologies and regulations, they keep evolving. They're not as mature as they will be in a couple of years. CSRD, for example, is going to make a big difference. We all know. I think all the companies that are going to be involved in CSRD are now very worried and working hard to comply with this new set of regulations. But in Portugal, we're talking about a little bit more of 1,000 companies out of the 300,000 companies that exist in Portugal. So that creates a different challenge. And if I'm talking about our international operations, the challenge is even bigger, as I said, because we have a long work ahead of us. What we're trying to do also there in the international operations is we're trying to create specific, let's call it, focal points in each of our international operations, basically bringing the knowledge, bringing them the learning, the toolkits, for them to be able to make a difference, naturally, according to their specific markets, because the markets have different regulations, as you said, but be able to bring them into it.
I was just thinking that many times it does have here conversations, but from, let's say, technicians of the field, right? But it's incredible how the company is embracing the momentum and believing that this is a business advantage, as you say, in the long run. No? So it's not that we do it only because we need to do it for the planet, but we also do it because we believe it's a strength and it's a resilience of the business model, ultimately. No, absolutely. And so let me be now the bad guy. So, and I must be at some point. So, yes, you said a lot of great things. There are a lot of commitments. But on the other hand, one might think that some of those commitments, for example, again, on the underwriting portfolio, the investment portfolio, do come with trade-offs on, business model, business choices. We cannot underwrite anymore some fossil fuels. We need to be careful about highly emitting customers. So, again, let me be the bad guy. How are you thinking about trade-offs between sustainability targets, profitability, results? Is this really a trade-off, or is this rather a way to review and reinvent your business strategy, adding the sustainability lenses. How do you think about the two dimensions together?
You know, Lorenzo, actually, nowadays I get that question many times. Because it almost seems that people want to hear that as an insurer, we will not insure nothing related with brown industries or whatever. So, and actually we believe there is a lot of work to be done together. And again, we believe that the true impact of insurance will be on being able to engage with some of them. Exactly. Being able to engage with some of these industries, with some of these companies, and actually support them in this effort that they will want to do into the climate transition. Yeah. So one of the critical aspects is, and as you said, we have analyzed basically all our customers. Nowadays we have a pretty good understanding of their emissions, let's just say of their emissions intensity, and concerning the ones that have higher emissions, we are basically engaging with them, trying to understand what their plans are, supporting them in this transition to make sure that they will be able to make the right steps. This is the right thing to do. The wrong thing to do would be to just say, we do not insure them at all from now on. But no, there is basically a path to use, a path to go through, in which we will help them. And of course, there will be a moment in which some of these customers, if some of these businesses, they don't do the right thing, yes, we will do the right thing also, which is not insurance. But we expect that.
We are seeing this, even in corporate. We are seeing that the companies have understood the role that they have, and it's the companies that are going to change the world. And so we believe that by acting proactively, we'll be able to do that. But still, there are other segments. Let's just say we talked about small companies. Small companies, it's pretty much the same logic, but they require even more support. They require, again, as I said, exactly. There are awareness programs, there are knowledge programs that we have to put in place, methodologies that we have to use to help them do this. Let me also give you an example. In our industry, we also work with a large number of brokers, small brokers. We are going to develop specific programs to improve their awareness and to improve their knowledge to be able to do the right thing. That's one of the things we're doing in underwriting. For example, in motor, we are naturally incentivizing the shift from fossil fuels into electric driving. And for example, one of the things we already have at this moment is we already have a telematics solution that actually, there's an app by Fidelidade. It's called Fidelidade Drive.
Incentivizes and rewards people for having a safe driving, which typically safe means economic and climate responsible driving. And the same thing on investments. Even the other day I was talking with our chief investment officer, and we were actually discussing a specific company, and the issue on the table was, should we invest now because of their emission intensity or not? And so what happened in the conversation was that we ended up saying, okay, let's engage with them again and understand better their plans, because we will decide later on how we react to this particular investment. So even on investments, there's a lot of things to be done. And in our case, we also have lots of real estate. We also invest in real estate. So that creates another, let's just say, another stream of work in which we can only invest nowadays in buildings that are following the right process to become climate responsible again. The same thing happens even with our own emissions, because we are developing, we're actually building a new headquarters in Lisbon, which is going to be leading edge in terms of energy effectiveness, let's just say. And actually, it's going to be, of course, certificates. It's going to be what we call LEED Gold, or even Platinum. We're still finding out what we can do. It has a specific system that is going to be much more effective in energy consumption for air conditioning, for example, using geothermal capabilities. And so there are many things we're going to be able to do. Making sure we only use renewable energy, improving the car fleet issues with our own employees, being more effective in traveling. And so there is a wide range of things we can do, actually a lot of them. There's a wide range of things we can do, both in our case, in direct emissions, in our operations, in underwriting, and in investments. In all of them, we want to be proactive. let me just say something which is also relevant, and this is actually a compliment to Portugal and to some of our customers. We actually are fortunate because most of our business is in Portugal, and Portugal in many aspects is leading the way. Okay? So one of the things
in terms of culture, of environment.
exactly. So we have a very strong share of renewable energy nowadays. It's being discussed if the country will actually anticipate the net zero targets from 2050 to 2045, for example, which is again a good sign. So that gives you an idea of what the country is trying to do in this area, and to tell you that, and also to say that we are fortunate also to have as a customer EDP, which is one of the leading utilities in the world. I think yesterday it was referred as probably the most effective, the most sustainable utility in the world, because they're doing a fantastic effort on transferring from fossil fuels into renewable energy. So in that sense, we are fortunate, but we believe we can do a lot to make a difference.
Yeah.
I think you are fortunate, but on the other hand, the SME nature, the multi-country nature of your business is a challenge. And what I really like is this word that keeps popping up in what you say, Rogerio, which is engaging. What's this thing in the company? Because I would imagine that this is not something that, yes, of course, you said we started with a sustainable DNA on the social side, but I would imagine for some of the things you mentioned in terms of tools, frameworks, methodologies, data, this is not something that grows on the trees, right? So I would imagine that there has been a significant effort. So the question would be if you could describe what this effort is and how you are organizing yourself to deliver on sustainability. And maybe let me add that having seen what recently happened with Sustainalytics, it seems that some of this effort is clearly paying out, at least as recognized by an independent body. So again, would be very curious to hear how you are building the sustainability operating model at Fidelidade.
Well, Lorenzo, as I've been also talking today, I think we need to walk the talk. And so what we decided to do once we put especially this environmental issue on the top of our sustainability agenda is we created a sustainability department. Actually, João, that was here before, is the head of the sustainability department. The sustainability department actually reports to the executive board and to me as the CEO. So it's on the clear focus of my agenda. And so of course, this department was created from scratch. The team, the capabilities and the size of the team have been growing up, of course, to be able to deliver. We've created also other forums to discuss internally. We have what we call the Sustainability Committee, both an operational one and a strategic one, to make sure that we have the right governance concerning sustainability, to make sure that we can then act and deliver on what we say. One of the other things which is always an issue, and it's still an issue for us in many ways, is that we cannot solve the problem with one sustainability department, because the sustainability has to be widespread across the whole company. So that means creating an operating model, let's just say, in which every department needs to have sustainability embedded in what they do. And of course, we're still fine-tuning this, but by now every department already has a focal point, let's just say, that interacts with us, knows exactly what we're doing, and is basically leveraging this change into its own department. That's one other thing. We've done the same thing in the international business. So in each of our international operations, we've created these focal points. We are developing with them the sustainability strategy of that particular operation, adjusted to the country, but with a group-wide perspective. So there's a consistent, let's call it, organizational effort to make sure that we have the right tools, the right people in each of the areas, in each department, in each of the operations to make it work. The other interesting thing has been, and it has been, how can I say, game changer, which is we decided to create incentives in Fidelidade about sustainability. And so it's not only the executive board that has incentives on sustainability, as many other companies. Nowadays, every employee is affected by a sustainability KPI. And so each department, for example, they have a scorecard, and there's a KPI in that scorecard. In this case, it is related with our rating in Sustainalytics, actually. And so let me tell you that this has been a game changer in the company, because suddenly everybody started to worry about, wait a minute, but if there's a rating, and if we have to contribute to this rating, and if we will be affected by this rating, that means we will have work to do. Exactly. So that has been incredibly important to make sure that the whole company is aligned. And yes, we're very happy with the good results we've had recently in the rating. Part of the good results, I'm very sure, were related because of the governance we were able to put in, the organization we were able to deliver, and the incentives that people. It was very important to focus people on the right track. So that's been very, very critical. I will talk about the Sustainalytics rating later on because it's actually good news, but I will reserve that for later.
It's I can imagine the effort, the genuine effort that goes into things like ratings, where, as you say, when they are properly measured and they are properly embedded in real life incentives. So it's really incredible. It's an incredible story, because many times we hear about amazing sustainability departments, but as you say, the 90% of the problem then is what happens in the business lines and what happens in the departments that they need to deliver actually on the sustainability goals. So absolutely. So maybe to close this discussion, we have spoken a lot about Fidelidade and in many different ways. Sustainability, profitability. We have spoken about what makes your targets and your strategy so special. But I was wondering, is there any way in which, given your role that you have in the country, in Portugal, and given your size in the country, is there any way in which you could promote a more systemic change with what you are doing? So is there any way in which you could mobilize even a broader part of the society that goes beyond Fidelidade and beyond customers of Fidelidade in the act of being customers? No? So is there a multiplier effect somehow that your action could bring to the country?
Definitely, this has to be a collective effort. I think we all acknowledge that. It's such a big change, that has to be present and embedded in everything we do in the country. And I think industry is one of the, insurance actually, insurance is one of the industries where we make a difference that goes much beyond our own emissions. We're not a utility company. As I said before, the emissions we produce and for which we are responsible directly are actually quite small in the grand scheme of things. So our role has to be proactiveness, and has to be use our capabilities to change the way people behave. Our individual customers, our business customers, and be able to help them, to support them, to teach them, to guide them in this effort. Being able to create the right incentives too, because this is important. I talked about incentives before. People do not move fast enough without the right incentives. And so I believe this is a strong effort that we need to do. It's something that Fidelidade will be very focused on, but not alone. Because I think, again, we have to be in part of a system. We have to be part of all the entities that are pushing forward with this transition. And there are many entities pushing forward this transition: regulators, industry bodies, climate-focused organizations. And so we have to be present. We have to be there. We have to help them shape not only these regulations, but help people shape a new behavior that will make a difference. That's where we can actually do it.
So, congratulations, and as I hear you, I do believe this is really the start of a journey, no? Because you are now, the direction is clear, the commitment is clear, but what you just explained today is that you are still at the beginning of a journey that will be very transformational for all of you. So on behalf of me and of BCG overall, best luck for your journey. And thank you.
Thank you.
All our future goes through here. Take a look.
goes through spaces designed with sustainable materials, embracing the best environmental practices. Our future goes through here. Take a look. Goes through spaces designed with sustainable materials, embracing the best environmental practices. Goes through a proactive role in the ecological transition, impacting society as a whole. Goes through fostering for an eco-conscious society, willing to become powerful agents for a positive change. Goes through working and acting according to the We Care spirit, ensuring that, in the future, we will always be present when and where people need us most. This is the only way to go.
For the First of all, thank you very much for the panelists in the previous moment. I think it was very enlightening about what Fidelidade is doing, especially in the mitigation actions. But now we're shifting to the adaptation, and that's why we have a very diverse group of panelists. And I would invite Raquel, Joana, and Rui to join me on stage. I'll start with a quick presentation. So, firstly, Raquel Pelicar, again from the UN Global Compact Portugal. She graduated in history and has a master's degree in archaeology. She's been working in environment impact assessments, tourism management since an early age. Was part of the Portuguese Association of Business Ethics, and today is a senior manager in the UN Global Compact Network Portugal, where she supports companies to address sustainable issues such as climate change or human rights. Then we have Joana Balsemão from Cascais Municipality. She graduated in International Relationships and with a master's degree in Environmental Change and Management. Joana has an experience of 20 years in sustainability, mainly in creation of public policies at the local level in Cascais Municipality, at the national level in the Ministry of Environment, and international level in European Union. Today she leads more than 1,000 people in the world's most sustainable, one of the world's most sustainable municipalities. Lastly, we have Rui from Fidelidade. He graduated in Applied Math and a Master's in Actuarial Sciences. He has been part of Fidelidade for more than 20 years. Based in Lisbon, he has been giving guidance to actuarial departments of Fidelidade Group in several countries in Europe, Africa, and South America, and has head of statistics and technical studies for non-life insurance. He's a co-leader and main promoter of the recently created Center for Climate Change at Fidelidade. So first of all, thank you very much for joining us in our events. And I'll start with Raquel, since I can say she has the most global view of how companies are looking at this issue. And I would start by asking how the UN Global Compact, as the world's largest corporate initiative related with sustainability, how do you feel that the companies are aware about the topic of climate change and are motivated to impact and implement climate adaptation actions?
Thank you, Bob. Well, we see companies globally being very motivated. Of course, the investment and financing issues and risk issues are a big part of it, but we also see from within the private sector that there is true will to do things. CEOs like Rogério here, for example, are no longer an exception, which is great. But being aware and being motivated to do things is unfortunately not always equal to being able to do them. And especially when it comes to adaptation, when it comes to having visibility over vulnerable communities or several climate issues, different companies are still going through different challenges. If you are a big company with a big supply chain, you struggle with visibility in the different tiers of your supply chain. You struggle with getting data from smaller companies in your supply chain. And if you are an SME, like the previous panel mentioned, that is the vast majority of Portuguese companies, for example, you also struggle with making that a priority. If you are dealing with inflation and interest rates and you're dealing with daily financing issues, it's difficult to focus on sustainability. And again, of course, associating ESG criteria to financing is a big deal, and it's a big step towards what we want, but it's also necessary to empower companies to help them go through that process, especially SMEs, and especially those SMEs which are part of supply chains and big companies that will be under the CSRD directive. So many of them are now, we were mentioning earlier how the big companies will have to report through the CSRD next year, are now concerned about that. But the companies that are associated with those big companies are also concerned. And so it is a process that everyone is still going through. But the good news is that, again, CEOs and everyone in the companies is aware that this is important.
It's clear. So basically, we can argue that there is a clear business case underlying sustainability for companies. And I'll urge any company that hasn't joined UN Global Compact to do it, because it supports us very much in discussing, learning, training. So it's a very good move, at least to start, and then to go beyond in the journey. Now, shifting to Joanna to have a public sector view on the issue. So, as I said in the beginning, it's clear that we need to have an ecosystem approach of public, private, NGOs to solve and to be able to deliver to the common goals we are discussing actually in this conference. How does Cascais municipality addresses climate adaptation? How do you make sure that you reduce vulnerabilities for the citizens you are responsible? And again, bringing the S, let's say the social dimension, how do you engage with the individuals to make sure that they do what they need to do to answer it?
Thank you for the invitation, and I think you'll hear the words engaging, like you kept mentioning, and the word multi as well. But I'll be focusing on concrete examples as well. So why should a municipality or local authority care about adaptation? It's very simple. You have extreme weather events, and citizens really expect us to have prevented, and they really expect us to react. So prevention and reaction. And of course we want to have like a territory that is prepared for whatever comes. Also, we've noticed that adaptation policies have loads of positive cross benefits. So I'll explain. Cascais, 6 years ago, we did our action plan for adaptation, and it was very cool. We used science-based policy, so we called a university to help us. I think it would be very unwise and stupid not to use science-based policy. And we called in lots of different departments from our organization. And I remember, like the colleagues from urban planning, the colleagues from communication. They came into this workshop one morning and they were like, rolling their eyes, why are we wasting our time here? What is all this adaptation? Blah, 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 I have so much work to do. And it was really cool because by the end of the session, everybody was clearly understanding that there's a role for everyone, and it's not just for the environmental department or the sustainability department in the company. Everybody had a role to play, and they felt really engaged. Also because when you have scientists explaining, it really helps. And okay, so then we developed a plan, and there were like 82 measures, and each measure was quantifiable money-wise. We had there were some things that I think we could have done better, looking back now. First of all, it's been 6 years, and we still haven't updated this plan, which is not great because science is developing very quickly, and also financially it's completely... We forecasted 12 million euros of investment until 2030, and we're way past 40 already, 40 million investments. Another thing we could have done better was to better involve citizens and even the private sector. We did involve the water companies, but I think we were not really prepared. We had to prepare as an organization. We needed capacity building as an organization and literacy building before involving everyone else. The pros were that we really engaged everyone, so everyone felt responsible, and we have a good governance system like working groups, and we check off the list and sort of celebrate whenever we can tick off one measure or whenever a specific measure is underway. Another good thing was that it was science-based. And now the challenges. Challenges are important, and one challenge is time, because many of the measures on this list are nature-based solutions, and nature takes time. So a third of the territory in Cascais is a national park, it's a protected area. And one of our measures is to really transform that national park into a biodiverse, fire-resilient area. There are too many eucalyptuses and acacia, it's not safe. And this takes time, and this takes communicating, and this takes working with the private sector, because there are many private landowners. And it also entails speaking to local communities, which we've done. But it takes time, so that's one challenge. Another challenge is that science also takes time. So we did work with academia, but in some instances, academia, for this plan, they said, well, we can't help you, you need another study. Like, we wanted to know what would happen to our beaches, because Cascais is a touristic destination. So what will happen to our beaches when sea level rises? And this concrete plan did not answer that, so we need to do another study to understand sedimentary dynamics. We also needed a further study to understand how can we use water more efficiently, and we've done that, and the conclusions have been really interesting. I can tell you more about that later. So that was interesting. Another challenge was competencies. So like for urban planning, a municipality has a limit to what it can tell private homeowners to do. If there were national legislation giving us more, muscular authority, then we could go much further. But we cannot, our competencies do not allow us to force new building to have this or that characteristic. And then another challenge is communication, because adaptation is very much about scaremongering. So, we're telling people that something bad will happen in the future. There will be less water, for example, or more forest fires, or sea level rise. But it's not really on people's minds or people's agenda. And so it's delicate for local authority to scare people before this is even on their minds. And it's delicate for us to say, okay, we're going to invest a lot of money of our public budgets, your money, to, prevent something that is not on your mind yet. So communication is delicate, and it has to be done always based on science.
Thank you, Joanna. Really impressive. Everything you described. Just to comment that actually, Fidelidade is setting up a forestry fund, and we are being faced by nature-based solutions and all that we need to think about behind it. And it's a critical step for the net zero plan that we have set up, because obviously we will not be able to reduce to zero the emissions that we have. And so the residual emissions will need to be captured in any way. And we believe that the forest is a good way to do it. Shifting now to the case of an insurance company. That's actually being in this event for some days, it's been interesting to see that insurance are not yet a very mentioned sector, for our surprise actually. And I would like to ask Rui, that just to be clear is the guy that you should blame if the car insurance is increasing, okay? So at least if you live in Portugal, you should blame him. But how does Fidelidade look to the protection gap and how to address the integration among people, companies, public entities, as Rana was mentioning.
Well, in fact, insurance companies have not been very focused on the sessions that we've attended up to now, unfortunately. But that's why we are here. Well, first of all, in considering your questions, I think that it's important to explain what is the protection gap, the insurance protection gap. We are talking about that when we see that a large part of the damages that are generated by climate events are not covered, namely are not covered by insurance policies. If we look historically for the Portugal case, thinking about the last 50 years, only 5% of the total damages created by climate events were covered. That means that we have a 95% protection gap. This is huge. Even thinking about today and specifically about home insurance, almost 50% of the homes in Portugal do not have an insurance policy that covers climate risks. So this is also a large problem that we have. And this is in Portugal. If we think about all the other countries where we're present and we have significant market shares, there the insurance policies for home insurance are very much less popular. So a large proportion of the inhabitants will not be protected for this sort of losses. So, and also if we think on the 50% that have the policies, clearly are the ones that have much more money, that are more able to buy those policies. The more vulnerable are the ones that don't have it. So this is not only a matter of the money that is involved, is also the kind of people that is vulnerable, is exposed to this. And so I think you're asking how do insurance companies look at it. I think that first of all we look at it as with concern, because it's a large problem for the country. We have severe events and we have an economic problem, but also we have a social problem. And also we find it as one of the main opportunities and the main reasons that insurance companies should look at adaptation for the climate change. We must close this gap. So this is a prior goal for insurance companies. It should be, and it is for Fidelidade. And to improve that protection gap, I think that first of all we need to look for the reasons why they exist. And there are several reasons. I'll point 4 or 5 of them. One of those are because we don't know yet exactly how are these risks. To improve this protection gap, we need to understand exactly for each location what are the climate risks that are exposed to. And this is not only to improve the technical management of the insurance companies, but also to support the ones that are exposed to know exactly what are the risks that they have. Because otherwise, what we have is that we have an asymmetry, because the ones that are very exposed will know exactly that they are, so they'll search for an insurance company, even if they consider it expensive, they will search it. And the other ones that in the same area will not do it, so will be very exposed to hazard selection, where only the ones that know that are more exposed will try to buy the policies. And this means that if the insurance companies don't manage this situation, will be in cases like we have seen, for example, in California, where some areas are not able to have insurance policy for homes because they know that is an area that is too much exposed to wildfires, so they don't make insurance there. But we need to know exactly which ones are exposed to each certain, it's a specific peril to do the right insurance. Other problem, I would say, because and the literacy is required to do some risk management. People are not aware of the risks that are exposed, and like Joanna was saying, to ask them to pay for something that they don't know exactly that is going to happen, it's difficult. So people don't find buying an insurance policy as a priority. So have other ways, there are other things that they need to expend their money, to spend their money, and so they don't buy the policies. And we need to make them be aware of why insurance policy is important, not only in the current situation, but in the situation where we're having all this climate change. Then there is the products. So designed are adequate for each person and that they can pay. Otherwise, we have a lot of people that will still won't buy the insurance policy. And once again, we are not talking only about Portugal. We are talking about several countries in the world where money, where the buying the policy is too expensive. So we need to work on that. The fourth reason I would say is distribution channels. Okay, in Portugal, I think that everybody knows the insurance agent because they need to do a motor policy. But if we think around the world, there are lots of areas where people don't know if they intend to buy an insurance policy, they don't know how to get it. So we need to improve our distribution channels in order to be able to reach all those people that usually don't have an insurance policy. And the fifth one, I think that we should have some regulation that would facilitate the access to insurance, that would promote the insurance, namely the sort of insurance that is really relevant to tackle all these climate change challenges that we have, namely for insurance, I think. So we need to tackle all these and other reasons. These are just a few of them, but if we want to close this gap, we need to act on all of them. And you were asking about the cooperation that we have with other European entities. And since you asked that, I would highlight the fact that Fidelidade has just recently created a Center for Climate Change. This is a center for studies to promote knowledge about all the challenges that we have related to climate change. With this, we want to engage with the scientific community, with experts, with other stakeholders like local authorities and policy decisors, and we want to combine that with our internal knowledge. Insurance companies have a lot of information about losses, they have a lot of information about the exposure that are in the territory, and we want to combine all that knowledge in order to create relevant information for insurance companies to tackle this, to be prepared for these climate change challenges, but also to generate relevant, good information, credible information for the society and for other agents and stakeholders that are in the environment. And with that, we want, for example, to generate papers, some books, some events like conferences, try to be present in the media, and trying to create awareness to people about how important insurance are, and also what are the risks that each one of them are exposed to. And talking a little bit more about this sense of climate change and thinking about what we are going to do in our next steps. I would say as a better version, we already made a study about hurricanes in Portugal. It's something that climate change has brought much more to Portugal. And the next big study we are going to do, which will be large, will be about wildfires. And with that, we intend to create knowledge about what are the specific risks in specific locations, which is very relevant to all these gaps, to promote some insurance, and communicate also the risk that everybody is exposed to. And but also we want to extract some outcomes that will help to with that to have a better territory that is better prepared to face those risks. And this is just one. We also want to do some events to promote the knowledge about these risks, but it's not only this, also we have a large amount of insurance persons. It's almost, if you think once again about home insurance, it's almost 1 million customers, 1 million homes in Portugal. And that gives us a very spread in knowledge about how the territory is occupied and how it houses. And we want to try to understand what are the vulnerabilities of each home in order to help them to improve the risk. It's not that much of short term, but it's something that we want to start and having some results in some 2 or 3 years. But we want to help people to identify what are their vulnerabilities and give them advices about how can they improve their risks and face these challenges. So there is a lot of work to do. So this is something that we have identified that is necessary, but we have to start working on it hard, and we are completely motivated for it.
Thank you, Rui, and I'll just summarize it in 2 or 3 notes if you might. You talked about the environment, but basically you talked about social. Everything that you said is social. And the number of 5% of the costs of environmental change in Portugal being covered by insurance, so 95% not being covered. It's overwhelming, and I'm sure that almost nobody has that notion. And the third note is, I think we are very used to talk about frequency and severity of the climate events, and both of them are increasing, but we don't hear so much about resilience. Basically, we're talking a lot about resilience. Adaptation is related with that. Shifting again to Raquel. So, how do you see companies working together to solve this problem, to work in these common goals? In concrete, how do you see insurance companies play a role in that? And how does Global Compact can support in these discussions?
How we see companies working collectively more and more. We are a private sector initiative, so we foster that and we try to create the right environment and the right circles for that. Whether it's in a geographical basis, just a few days ago we had a huge meeting about the African coalition, which has a specific strategy, but also in terms of topics. So I think the one thing that came out of the Global Compact was created within the UN Global Compact with the CDP and WWF is the Science-Based Targets Initiative. It's one of, nowadays, it's one of the biggest groups of companies setting science-based targets and being committed to them. And it is working very hard towards having specific solutions for sectors. So if you are in a specific industry and you didn't have a solution until now, they're most likely working on it, and that goes for financial institutions and insurance companies as well. So I think that it is very, very valuable nowadays to have the science-based targets, not only because it's become yes. See? See? I speak.
Yes.
We're mentioning the importance of science-based targets.
Yes, they are important because they are they've become a standard on their own, but also because all of the data that they've collected shows that science-based companies that set science-based targets within the initiative that have goals, interim goals that are focused on achieving them actually do better than companies who are working on the problem, do have some goals and even some science-based goals, but are not working under a collective action. And so they see that companies actually reach their goals earlier than they expected, or in a broader way, or reach better results because they are integrated within the initiative. And that goes for others. We have the CFO coalition within the Law Compact that works with financial institutions, sustainable finance. We have the Water Coalition that's all about water resilience, the Ocean Stewardship Coalition. In Portugal, we have the Portuguese Platform for Integrity. We have a national gender equality target. We have the SDG Alliance that tries to create awareness within the civic community about the SDGs. And every time we get these companies together, every time we get stakeholders together within these initiatives, we see that they work better together. They engage with each other, they get each other excited about things and committed, and so working together works better, of course. And also, we have work, and then we also have communicating what we do. So far, these platforms also worked in terms of pledging and doing a compromise to do something, a commitment. Now we're moving forward from that. We have a new initiative called Forward Faster, and our hope is that that will also help and get companies on board into actually turning those commitments into practice. And everything UNO Law Compact does is always, if you sign up for a coalition, you sign up for a working group, it always comes with research. It always comes with a business case that's very clearly explained to companies so that companies can communicate that inside and out. And it also always comes with tools, actionable tools, so that companies can actually put into action what they want to do and scale the action that sometimes they have already started doing. And that's, I think, one thing that is very valuable. And we see companies doing it more and more. Fidelidade actually joined us for a few initiatives, and it helps. We see that it also helps when you have companies setting the example. So now we want to keep doing it, and the Forward Faster campaign is the one thing that we want to get companies involved with, setting targets, communicating their progress annually, and doing it in very specific topics that we need to move forward faster, like gender equality, like water resilience, like sustainable finance. And we're gonna keep doing the work with the company.
I think now you even understand better why I was mentioning that for a company it's very important to be in this association, because, well, let me summarize it as you are like a train waiting in the station for any company to join, then you accelerate the journey, and then you have all the others in the train also with you, and you can discuss and try to work together. And Joanna, how do you see insurance companies working with municipalities such as Cascais to effectively answer the needs of the citizens that you are responsible for? And how do you look to solve, let's say, the problem of the infrastructures that are already present in places that have excess vulnerabilities? And specifically, what do you think about reconstructing when something happens, when an event happens, in the same place where we already know that probably they shouldn't have been there from the start?
I think insurance companies are probably the best qualified entities to help us measure risk or avoided risks. So remember when I mentioned how we communicate and how we should prioritize our investment regarding adaptation policies and initiatives? It would be really useful for us, to have your number crunching, to understand, with policy A, like for example, we are using nature-based solutions to restore our rivers. They're really creeks, not rivers, but because these rivers are covered in cement, so they're permeable, and they cause enormous flood risks downtown. And there are 7 of these in our municipality. So we're restoring these creeks using nature-based solutions. It's a huge investment. small parenthesis, it does have a lot of cross benefits, direct cross benefits that everyone will feel, because we will be restoring biodiversity and we will be giving back these green corridors to the people. And this is also very social, like you said, it's not just environmental or economic, and it's about people, it's about mobility and soft mobility, people being able to go from the beach to the north of the territory and connecting different parishes. This is really important. But it's also about minimizing flood risks, even though this is not the first thing people will think about. And we have no idea, and I think academia has trouble with this as well. Understanding how much risk is avoided when we actually do this investment. We are not directly working with insurance companies, but we are working, we have 7 EU or EEA grants, EU projects ongoing. This is a 70 million euro value consortium-wise, and 190 partners. And so we do have lots of private companies and universities and NGOs and local authorities working together. But number crunching is very difficult. And local authorities we're good with proximity and very good with empirical knowledge, really good with empirical knowledge. We just don't know how to get this all together. And more, we're getting good at the smart side of measuring and the technology, and we have flood warning systems that will give us 30 minutes of advance to get people out of downtown Cascais, and we have a really good, accurate network of weather stations, because weather phenomena are extremely micro-related. Even in a small territory like Cascais, what happens in the west is not exactly like what happens in the east, and we've noticed this with recent flooding events, for example. So this is where I see, that we really should have this kind of partnership and this kind of knowledge combined. And it's the combination that is difficult. It's combining academia, combining your area of expertise, our areas of expertise, and just getting all this together. I think that is very challenging. This kind of, we use these nice words like, oh, we need an ecosystem. We need a knowledge center. But then getting all this together and translating that kind of data into knowledge that really supports decision making, I think that's extremely challenging. I mentioned before how that it is difficult for us to impose any kind of obligation on private homeowners. We would never rebuild in an area that is prone to extreme weather events. Our property, we would not rebuild our infrastructures. But again, I need the data and the science to tell the private homeowners that they should avoid that as well. So just before closing, I wanted to pick up on what you were saying regarding cooperation, and this is something we are not doing very well, because national parks that are fire prone, they're shared. It's not just in our territory, but on neighboring territories. Rivers are shared. Oceans, coastlines are shared. And we are doing very cool stuff, like in Cascais we're reforesting our seabed. This is also adaptation, because when we have winter surges, it's important to have the forests out there to protect what happens on land. But then we can do our part, or another municipality can do their part, but if we're not working together, it will only take us so far. And so this is a mea culpa. I think each territory is focusing so hard on their bits, and maybe each company is working so hard on their bits, that we forget to take the train together. And cities, I think cities are a very, very important key for the future. If you can make it work in cities and local authorities, if you multiply that effect everywhere in the world, you can make it work everywhere, because it's really a battleground where sustainability issues can be won or lost. They concentrate the problems, but they also concentrate the solutions. So if you can make it work in these small administrative cells, I think we have a good chance of making it work all over the world. Yeah, I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rene. I hope that next COP we are able to tell that we are working already in very concrete projects with municipalities such as Cascais that are for sure setting the standard for what should a municipality be doing to answer this. But basically you're urging Rui and all the other entities that are working on the topic to work together with you and also the municipalities among themselves. And Rui, just to end this panel, how do you see insurance adapting in their product offering to reduce the protection gap you're mentioning that is huge? And what roles do you think that an insurance needs to take to make sure it's a just transition? Because, as you're mentioning, the people that need more insurance are the ones that can't afford the insurance. So, how can we solve this equation that seems a little bit impossible to solve?
It's not impossible to solve. But first I would like to reinforce something that Jonas was said about crunching the numbers. Because, well, the authorities, mainly local authorities, have a lot of knowledge about the territory. And of course, that is the main drivers for the impact and both the vulnerabilities in climate change. It kind of plays an important role, but how the territory is organized very well and their characteristics. And usually there are studies that say, well, this is more prone to having the floods, this is less prone. But insurance companies can put a figure on the paper. They can say what means in terms of losses of being in one place or being in the other, or changing something that will make it more prone for floods. So it's really interesting that you have that point of view, because it's something that usually I find only in insurance companies. And of course that approach is something that facilitates all the talking. Well, talking about products, first of all, we need to change a lot, but we don't need to change all, because we have a lot of products that are very well prepared to face the challenges of climate change, to support adaptation and keeping people protected. But as I said, not everybody has it. So we need more than we change everything. We need to create additional things or to give additional layers to the products and the package that is involved in the product. Well, first of all, I think that we need to be able to tailor more the products, because nowadays we are a little bit of one size fits all, and they are very comprehensive products. Well, it covers everything, but it's not exactly everything. I can say that as an insurance employee, but almost everything is covered. But we see that doesn't respond necessarily to what the needs of everybody. So we need to tailor more the products to achieve everybody, and with that we need to have some also refine the pricing. So we have no frills products, which means that we don't have products where we don't have what is not necessary, and with that we will be able to keep the prices down. And also we will need to have some flexibility, because even with the no frills product, it can be too expensive for some. So eventually we'll need to have products that don't give the full protection, but will have some protection in case of an event, an unexpected one, and catastrophic event. So that is something that we need to change, to tailor. And one of the things that I've said in the first part is very relevant for this, because this tailoring requires knowledge about which risks each one is exposed, and for that that is some relevant information, because there are people that are more prone to wildfires, others for floods, others to storms. So we need to understand that for all risks that we have in our portfolios, and for the all risks that we can eventually sell. But it's not only about the product itself and the coverages. It's also about the way that we distribute. We need to find ways to reach everybody. And this is also, and to complement this, we have to not only we can use not only the traditional channels, but we can take advantage of all the digitalization. So nowadays it's much more spread that people can get through the internet and to buy a policy. But for that, we also need to have the selling process to be much more lean in order to be simpler and that people can buy it. It must be cheaper, it must be simpler, so that everything of this can be achieved. But of course, we need to have the information about the risk to make it sustainable also for the insurance company, not only in the social term. A lot the insurance literacy. People need to have exactly coverages, because buying a policy, insurance policy, is always a matter of trust, and people need to trust what they are buying, and need to trust in the insurance company. So this needs to be explained well for people to understand. So I think we need to work on all of these topics to improve the products and to make it more accessible and be a part of this gap closing. And how can we help people? Well, we can help them in several steps. One is helping them to explain them what risks they are exposed, and to do this once again we need tailoring. We can be alarming everybody about all the sorts of perils, when in fact people look around and they see, I'm not exposed to wildfire, I'm in the middle of a large city, so why are you telling me about that? So we need to tailor all this communication and to help them to have the risk management. Once again, this requires knowledge, and that is something that we need to invest in. And secondly, once the people buy the right policies, we need to help them to improve their risks and to be more resilient to the challenges and to what's coming with all this climate change. And in fact, it's already here. And in the third moment, when in the verge of occurrence of a catastrophe, we need to give them the right advice. So once again, we shouldn't be alarming everybody. We should be giving them the right advice, how to be prepared to face the storm that is coming. And if we do this, we will be much more efficient in guaranteeing that people recognize the message that we're giving to them and how we are helping them to face the storm. So this requires data, this requires interacting with all the parties that have information about this, but we can help them in this several moments. This requires investment, this requires time, it requires effort, but it's something that is critical to do to be able to achieve this goal about improving the risk management for everyone.
Can I just say something very quickly? It's interesting because apparently we're talking about insurance and, spare stuff, but actually I think a common thread that I've heard here is about a much more human factor, which is trust. And so, citizens have to trust their elected officials, and citizens have to trust insurance companies that they will be there at the end of the day. Companies have to trust the rating systems. Companies have to trust each other because they will work together, and local authorities have to trust science. And all this is, sewn in a common thread, and it's very interesting. We're not just talking about infrastructures or numbers or policies. It's much more than that, and I think COP is also about trust.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And just to wrap up the panel, Portuguese pavilion is all covered in posters saying, "Is it enough?" I think we already answered a strong no, but I think we are trying to do our best so that every year we are trying to deliver solutions concretely in the field and not necessarily only very big targets and ecosystem talks that are empty in the end. We are not doing things on the ground. Thank you very much for your participation in the panel and accepting our invitation. And I'll just ask Rogério to come on stage and wrap up the event. Thank you very much.
Well, so I was asked to actually wrap up the panel. I was, and I hope our foreign invited people will forgive me, but we are in the Portuguese pavilion, so I would like to finalize the panel with words in Portuguese. I can translate later on. But, so I will switch to Portuguese briefly to say that, first of all, let me switch to Portuguese. Não, antes de mais, gostaria de agradecer naturalmente a presença de todos aqueles que aqui estiveram hoje, quer os convidados, quer os membros do painel. Espero, sinceramente, que o painel tenha sido muito esclarecedor, na medida em que demonstra que a indústria seguradora é uma indústria que pode ter um papel muito importante em tudo o que tem a ver com a transição climática, não apenas por causa das suas emissões diretas, mas muito mais pelo impacto que pode ter ao longo dos seus investimentos e no impacto que pode ter na forma pedagógica como pode lidar com os seus clientes na atividade de fazer seguros. Hoje é um dia especial para nós, e já vão perceber porquê. A Fidelidade, como vocês perceberam, quer ter um papel muito ativo na transição climática, e nós tivemos recentemente uma muito boa notícia, que foi o seguinte: nós no rating da Sustainalytics, que é um dos ratings fundamentais a nível mundial em termos de certificação para os temas da sustentabilidade, nós tivemos uma melhoria muito significativa e, portanto, passámos a ter um risco muito baixo, mas mais do que isso, temos um score que nos coloca entre as melhores seguradoras do mundo. E, portanto, nós passamos a ser, com este rating, que vem aqui atrás de mim, passamos a ser a segunda melhor seguradora da Europa e a quarta melhor seguradora do mundo. E isso é algo que, naturalmente, nos deixa muitíssimo satisfeitos e queremos celebrar. Muito obrigado. Queria também dizer o seguinte, nós, se há algo que vimos aqui hoje, é que esta jornada pela transição climática vai ser longa, vai ser difícil, nós estamos apenas no princípio. E, portanto, este rating, que é um excelente resultado, com o qual nós nos congratulamos muito, não nos vai deslumbrar, muito pelo contrário, vai nos motivar a fazermos mais e melhor. E contamos naturalmente com todos vós para fazer esse caminho, porque já percebemos que isto é um esforço coletivo. O tema da transição climática é provavelmente a batalha das nossas vidas e é algo pelo qual temos que lutar em conjunto. Agradeço a todos a vossa presença e espero genuinamente que nós consigamos fazer este caminho com muito sucesso. Muito obrigado a todos.
Two centuries ago, we took our first steps onto this journey, a journey of resilience, determination, and innovation on risk management. Today, as we stand at the intersection of history and responsibility, we pledge our commitment to sustainability for the well-being of those who are born today, by those who are young, by those who are adults, and by those who have not born yet. What we've learned along this path is that life must not be stopped. This is the only way to go, reducing our ecological footprint, impacting society and leading by example. We have set ourselves the ambition to reach net zero by 2050, while for our operations by 2040. We work every day on longevity, health prevention, and inclusion. We act by the We Care spirit, ensuring that we are always present when people need us most. We are proactive players in social protection and empowerment. We are change makers so we can continue together. Join us preparing the future so that life doesn't stop. Our future goes through here. Take a look. Goes through spaces designed with sustainable materials, embracing the best environmental practices. Goes through a proactive role in the ecological transition, impacting society as a whole. Goes through fostering for an eco-conscious society, willing to become powerful agents for a positive change.